All right. I think we're on. Can you hear me, Veronica?
Yes, I can. Hi, Julia. How are you?
Amazing. Good. How are you?
Good. Doing great.
Good.
The sun has disappeared in Munich. However, we have Oktoberfest going on, so I think,
Wow.
the city is quite popular at the moment, even though the sun has disappeared. But yeah, great
Amazing.
here.
Yeah, Oktoberfest is always one of these big events that everybody's waiting and looking forward to, at least in Europe. So that's really, really exciting. All right. Well, just to introduce myself and introduce just the show for everybody that's listening, welcome. I am beyond excited for today's episode because we're diving deep into something that's really at the heart of every single successful sale: communication. So today we're going to talk about how we can unlock the power of conversation metrics intelligence and transform the way we connect with customers. So today I'm joined by Veronica Wax, a dynamic CEO whose tech company Demodesk, if you haven't checked it out yet, please go ahead and look at the website. But Demodesk is revolutionizing sales conversations through sales data and coaching. So imagine if you would know exactly how to adjust your tone, your timing, and your questions in real time to close more deals. We're going to break this down for you and this magic of conversation metrics. And by the end of this episode, hopefully, you'll feel equipped to have more meaningful, productive, and fun conversations that actually drive results. So let's get into it right away. Um, all right. Well, so I'm Julia Listig, and I am leading the sales engineering team in Southern EMEA in Seismic, which is an incredible software company and leader in the enablement space. So same thing there. If you are interested, go ahead and check it out. And I also want to remind you that there is a chat box. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask away. And at the end, or probably maybe along the way, we'll see if there's anything, any questions that's burning, we can take those on and answer those, obviously. So please go ahead and do that. And if you haven't yet invited all of your friends or your colleagues to this live sessions, please do so straight away, because we have a full hour ahead or a little bit less um, of really, really, a great conversation. So welcome, Veronica. Please go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience, maybe who you are as a person.
Oops, and she disappeared. I just go on and introduce myself. So for sure, Julia will come back in a second. So I'm Veronica, founder and CEO of Demodesk. Customer conversations are at the heart of what we do. So we do have a sales meeting platform for that's designed for sales teams, but we also very excited about our latest product edition, which is an AI-powered software that automates note-taking, record keeping, and sales coaching for everyone after any type of meeting. So it also integrates with Zoom, Meet, and Teams, and not just with Demodesk. And that's also why conversational metrics is also super interesting to us. It's a topic that we have analyzed a lot in the past couple of years, and also collected quite some data that I'm excited to share with you, alongside some best practices. And I think the session will only last half an hour, Julia, right? Not an hour, just not to scare anyone away. So you will still have time for your lunch. It will be just half an hour or 25 minutes. So no worries.
Yeah, sorry about that. I also got lost with my connection, so I'm back. Sorry, Veronica. But yes, absolutely. I said an hour, but you're right. It's much less than that. So thank you for introducing yourself. And sorry, I wasn't there to listen in.
No worries at all.
Can you
Perfect moment, I think, you kind of asked me to introduce myself, and then you disappeared, and then when I was finished, you came back. So it's all great.
Oh my gosh, the joys of the internet. Can you walk us through maybe your career journey and how you ended up founding Demodesk?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, after I studied in Munich, Germany, and New York, I joined a couple of startups and worked, more in the entrepreneurial world, and really loved that. However, then I just thought I'm gonna, have some basic things to learn about how to communicate with customers, how to manage stress, how to lead a team, and then I joined a strategy consultancy where I also worked a lot in sales and worked a lot on like sales and marketing projects, and also consulted companies on how to like sell better to customers. And then after a while, it was time for me to move on, and then I met my co-founder, and back then we actually looked at a technology that was redefining the way how the screen is being shared. So when we started, we actually started developing virtual screen sharing technology that doesn't record your local desktop, but sets up a virtual display where you can just directly share things with other participants. And back then also Warzone still is much easier than on downloads. You can also collaborate with others in real time. And then we explored a couple of use cases, and because I also came from the sales corner, of course, the sales use case for me was the most interesting one, but also I think the most exciting one, because we actually wanted to help sellers in real time by automatically displaying the right content, the right playbooks, the right talk tracks, to help them basically make themselves the best version of them. We really saw that huge opportunity, and then built products around it. So today we have a larger suite of products, which is a scheduling solution, a meeting platform, and then again the latest edition, our third product, which is a sales coaching, AI-based sales coaching software that also works on top of any meeting tool, not just our own. And that's basically the journey in a nutshell.
Wow. So it's so inspiring. What is, you would say, the one thing that has shaped your career path? If you could, choose one thing.
Cool. It's a tough question, right? Because there were like so many things. But I mean, we joined Y Combinator in 2019, and that was really for us a very incredible experience, because I mean, we spent 3 months in Silicon Valley and like we're surrounded by all the people who founded like amazing companies, and they're very hugely successful, and just being with them in one room, because of course they came by and shared their stories, and they shared where they started and how they got to where they were or where they are. And that for us was really inspiring, and also helped us set our own ambitions high enough, and that was probably like one of the most life-changing experience, like at least from a career perspective, right? I mean, of course, in private life there are also others, but I think you meant career.
All right. Oh, wow. Okay. And in terms of, more deep diving into Demo Desk and what it does, and, the tool that it is, which I think is spot on with everything going on in terms of AI. So I've also read a insightful article on Sandler's framework, which is called Why Better Communication Skills Lead to More Sales Success. And on your company's website, there's also something called How to Use and Interpret Conversation Metrics in Sales. And there's actually like a whole grid that's really, really insightful, and that I thought it was an amazing cheat sheet. So if anybody's interested, I could also pop in the link. But basically, that cheat sheet that comes from Demo Desk are all the KPIs that a company or sales leader should be looking for in terms of conversation performance for your customer-facing teams. And so maybe something more on the conversation metrics, because it's basically the heart of what we're going to speak today, right? So the talk ratio is such an interesting metric that I knew it was there, but I didn't think more of it before reading the cheat sheet. So how do you formulate this metric, and how have you been balancing talk time? How have you seen that balancing the talk time has been transforming sales conversation? And what advice would you give to sales reps to basically, when they're over talking, what should they do?
Yeah, so the talk ratio actually just tells you how much you are speaking versus how much your customer or your customers are speaking. And I mean, obviously, every customer conversation should be somewhat balanced. So you don't want to, I know, like talk for 20 minutes in a row, and then don't really make sure you understand the customer. So you want to ensure that you build rapport in the beginning. It's a lively conversation. You understand the customer's problems. And I mean, this is just one metric in order to approach whether you have done a good job at this, right? So there are like many more metrics. And thanks to AI, we can also analyze much more than just like the pure statistics or the pure conversation metrics, like the ones that we're discussing here. And that's also where it gets interesting and gets exciting. However, it's like just one measure to really understand, hey, do you engage with the customer in a good enough way? And typically an ideal talk ratio is around, let's say 50-50 or 60-40 in favor of the customer. So the customer should speak in 60% of cases. I mean, of course, it doesn't apply to all customer conversations, right? So depending on whether it's a discovery call, a demo, whether it's an onboarding session or a Q&A session, of course, there are differences. So not every conversation is exactly the same. But if you generalize and make it a little bit easier to understand, I think the golden ratio is around 55-60% in favor of the customer.
Okay, and how can sales reps how is that once it's measured and you have all these analytics, which obviously is really, really crucial? How do you pass that on to the actual reps? Like how can you basically transform that from theory into practice?
I mean, the first step for sure is awareness. So before you can change or improve, you need to be aware of how you're actually performing, right? So in this case, it probably makes sense to use a tool that records your sales conversation and just tells you actually how much time you were speaking, so what your talk listen ratio was, and then once you understand it, you connect on it. And let's assume for a second, I mean, you're talking way too much, right? So the customer doesn't speak enough. Then for sure you should just, I mean, first try to understand how you can improve and maybe speak to your supervisor. But general recommendations are to encourage the customer to share their thoughts and needs. Maybe set yourself like even a timer, that after, let's say, 30 seconds or at least a minute, you get reminded of the fact that you should ask another question and again, let the customer speak. I mean, active listening is also a huge piece, right? Summarizing pain points of customers and following up with questions. So once the customer has shared, I mean, especially in sales, right? Typically, it's a lot about understanding what the problems of the customer are, and then just rephrasing them, summarizing them, and then again, letting them come and confirm or change the understanding. Even that, triggers like a more lively conversation with more conversation switches. And I mean, there can also, of course, be a tendency to talk too much because you're excited about your product, you want to explain all the features. This typically happens in demos. I think then it really helps to prepare before the call and just make sure you focus on the 3 most important pieces, practice a bit, and just also be a bit more concise with the responses, tailor them to the specific pain points. So I think there are a couple of different examples how you can improve on that ratio. Based, of course, but of course, it always depends on how you're currently performing. But the first step always is like measuring it, and then just really making sure that you just asking enough questions and not speaking too much time in a row. And those are like the two basic recommendations. But I think that's like somewhat, it's self-explanatory, so everyone knows it in theory. But sometimes you forget, and then making you aware of that by using a software really helps to remind you, hey, it's really important, and you haven't been performing super well on that metric.
I love that. That's really, really insightful. So maybe in regards to that as well, because you have AI that's helping out, how can AI, how have you implemented AI within Demos Desk, but also how can AI really specifically say whether how can it measure if the conversation is a good conversation or it's a bad conversation that they're having with the customer or prospect?
Well, so AI can, number one, AI can understand the context of a conversation. So before we had large language models that were performing well as they do today, right? Before we had that, you just had these metrics, so you really had to rely on things like longest monologue, talk listen ratio, speech rate. So you didn't really have the possibility to go beyond just analyzing pure metrics. So now you have metrics; they are like supporting the analysis, but most of all, you have an AI-based sales coach, also in our case, right, that analyzes the conversation and understands things like, hey, did you build rapport with the customer? Were you asking enough questions? So the AI can also detect how many questions you have asked, and the AI can even detect things like, have you actually dig deep enough into the customer's pain points? So like once you have asked a question, do you also ask follow-up questions to understand where it really comes from? So this is today possible with AI, where it was not, let's say, a year ago. And this is also why such a solution is so exciting today, because you don't just have the metrics, but you also have the possibility to like dig deeper and understand like why did you not show a high enough or a low enough talk listen ratio. I mean, of course, you can also like talk too little, which is also not great. And really dig deeper and like give you specific points for improvement and analyze what was going behind these metrics.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing the people that are listening in have already used something like this, or maybe not yet, but they're thinking of it. We're using it at Seismic as well. We have a tool that's also doing this, and AI is just incredible when helping us prepare even before. So if we've already had a call and we're going into second call, the AI is like basically trying to listening in to the transcript of the first call and giving pointers as to the conversation that we should have in the second call. So helping us really prepare a meeting, giving us the insights that we need. And just basically also the notes, having all the notes right there in front of you, which is amazing. And of course, the biggest pillar of all, like you said, is coaching, right? Making sure that not just for yourself, I think as a seller, understanding what hits home and what doesn't, but also having your managers look into, what are you saying, maybe the OKRs or the goals of the company, and the different goals that they want to hit. Does that actually transcribe all the way down to the people that are on the field or not? And how is that actually, how is the message actually passed on to prospects and customers? So it's absolutely fascinating, and we're learning a ton. And I think this is just the start of AI. So it's going to do a lot more. In terms of like monologues, because obviously a conversation just like we're having right now with prospects and sellers. So when sellers are having sometimes these monologues, keeping them short seems very crucial, because you don't want to have, like you said earlier, too much of a talk time on the seller side. How would you say that sales reps keep the conversation dynamic and avoid these lengthy one-sided explanations?
Yeah, I think it's actually like a little bit the same as talk listen ratio, right? So, I mean, just make sure that you just don't talk too much at once. So set yourself a timer or remind yourself to like make a pause, ask questions, and encourage the dialogue, and really also invite the customer to either confirm what you just said or share their thoughts on something. And I mean, for example, if you're doing something like a software demonstration or just like a product demo, in a sense, then just like pausing and making sure to check if the customer has any questions or needs clarification. So even though, of course, like you're more in the driver's seat to show and demonstrate something, which typically, of course, also is or does come with a higher talk share and longer monologue on the seller side, and just pausing and understanding whether there are any questions or whether everything has been covered really helps a lot. And yeah, I mean, also just summarizing key points and avoiding lengthy explanations is also one thing that can be practiced. So rather than sending messages that are 5 minutes long will explain all the different features, it might make more sense to really focus on the core points. There's also one funny thing that the manager also always said to me when I was a strategy consultant. He said, yeah, Veronica, always when you write an email that's long enough, then ask yourself, like, did you really invest the time to make it short enough? or did you just not have the time to write a short enough email and actually take it as an excuse to just send a lot of points over? So typically, like, concising something into like a very like short format, either in written or in spoken words, also requires a lot of work, right? And is something that is not easy to do. But I think that's really the key here. Just making sure you don't over talk the customer.
Yeah. So it's funny, you spoke about questions. I really like that, because questions it's not enough it's good to, for that monologue to break it up and ask questions. But the thing that we're also seeing, and maybe AI will catch up on that soon, because right now what AI does is just tell you the questions that you're asking the most. But the thing is, how about these qualitative questions? Because asking the prospect just like, oh, okay, so what do you think about this? You're not going to get an answer that you really need. You're just going to get like, oh yeah, I think that's great. Like that's not qualitative. So how would you say, like, is Demo Desk doing something to like push the right questions as well, or is that something that a coach can do to make sure that the right questions are also being asked?
I think, to be super honest, I think like making sure that you ask the right questions. It takes a while for AI to really be there, because I think AI is still not at a point where it can replace a seller. So we also have thought a lot about supporting sellers in real time by, like a head-up display in our car, like, pushing up questions that you should ask or follow-up questions. However, I mean, like really making sure that you understand the customer, read the emotions, read the atmosphere in the room, or in a virtual meeting room, and just making sure you ask the right questions to dive deeper. I think that's always something that like someone needs to be practiced and need to get better at it over time. So we do believe more in feedback after the call. So you like get better with every single call, but like you're not getting from 0 to 100 in the first call, because it's also again like a little bit the same example as with the head-up display in the car. If you're overwhelming the sales rep, or if you're overwhelming the driver and like showing them all different things at the same time, I mean, it probably like won't really help the case, right? So like first you need to learn how to drive. I mean, of course you can get there faster by using help in the form of AI. But it's probably not something where like can digest as many information at a certain point that you can really like replace the learning experience entirely. I mean, the other question is, I mean, again, like will AI at some point, will a virtual salesperson be as good as a real salesperson at some point? Could be. I think we're not there yet, but that's a different question. You also just don't want to overwhelm the sales rep at the moment.
All right. And then also just wanted to mention, so we're going to take Cesar's question right now, but also just wanted to mention what you said earlier. I loved, Veronica, when you said, keep it concise. I feel like the hardest thing, just generally, whether it's an email, whether it's explaining yourself, or everything is much harder when you're trying to be concise than if you're like just babbling on about it. So just wanted to mention that. I just think it's people always think it's the amount that matters, but it's not. It's really, if it's short and qualitative, it makes sense. All right, so thanks so much, Cesar, for your question. So the question that Cesar's asking is, to you, Veronica, is would you personally put AI or data over gut feeling, I guess, when it's about rating reflecting on a sales conversation, or would you say one complements the other?
I think for sure one should complement the other, right?
I
I
love
think
the
that's
question.
also depends. I mean, who is the person that evaluates the call, and like where does the gut feeling come from? So has that person 30 years experience in leading sales teams in that specific industry? If that's the case, then I mean, like, for sure I think still gut feel like it counts a lot. However, what's the great thing about AI is that an AI can always think of everything, right? And like an AI can digest much more at the same time than a human ever can. So you as a human, I mean, of course, for example, if someone like speaks way too fast or way too much, that's typically like the most dominant thing, and the thing that you then would also play back to the seller as a feedback. However, there also might be other things like analyzing what has actually been said, and maybe were also other points of where, I mean, done and performed well in sales conversation, and the AI has the power to like really digest like everything at once and like ask, let's say, unlimited amount of questions, and analyze the call in an unlimited amount of ways and dimensions at the same time. So it's just really, it makes sure you don't forget anything, even though of course as like a human you might emphasize one or two specific points because they feel more important to you. So I think putting those two things, like an AI-based sales coaching software alongside an experienced sales coach, I think that's for sure the most powerful way.
I love that. All right. So thanks, Caesar, for your question. So maybe another question that I had as well is, if you could change one common perception about sales coaching, what would it be?
Well, what we actually have learned with all our customers over time is that I would say is at least 60% of sales coaching advice can be generally applied to any type of sales team, any type of market, any type of industry, and any type of product. Because I mean, typically it's always the same. You need to ensure at the beginning you build rapport with the customer. I mean, independent of what is the product that you're selling, I mean, it's like equally important, like for everyone. You need to make sure you build a connection with the customer. You need to make sure you share your agenda in the beginning. You need to make sure they listen ratio is balanced. You need to make sure you like really dig deeper and understand the problem well enough, and then in the end take time for follow-up questions and make sure that there are next steps being discussed. So what I'm just saying, I think like even out of the box, an AI sales coach, even without not knowing or without knowing anything about your specific product or market or seller or customer, can provide so much value. And then, like the real added value then can actually come from a human sales coach. But you also, as a human, you also don't want to repeat yourself and tell everyone the same thing 100 different times. So I mean, number one, you can automate 60 or 70% of sales coaching advice and apply to all types of companies. And number two, it really helps you to, I mean, applying such a software, like also demo, that's great. It really helps you to focus on the key points that really make a difference, and just automate the repetitive stuff that like also someone else can do, and where your brain and your time is not worth investing.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's very, very, very cool stuff there that I actually can learn from as well. And I think you're right. I think it's not just the sales coach also that's giving you advice. I think at some point, sellers also need to, get the feedback and then try to, implement it, which is always, the hardest, obviously. But all right. So maybe the last question before we wrap it up very quickly, because time has flown. What emerging trends are you seeing in the conversation intelligence space?
Can you repeat it? I didn't get the question.
What emerging trends, so the trends that are going on right now in the conversation intelligence space that you're seeing?
I mean, so number one for sure is like automating a huge part of human sales coaching with technology, with AI. So that's like one big trend, right? It's also one that like we are capitalizing on a lot. I think what the next trend then also is to like really make sure that you apply best practices across companies, across sellers, and just like help everyone advance and help everyone become like a better performer. It's just possible today. And then the third thing is, I mean, also automating all the manual repetitive workflows. I mean, you also said it before, right? Like making notes, like writing notes manually, syncing them into your CRM, writing follow-up emails, making sure you summarize the key points in a concise way. I mean, those are all things that also AI can help you with. So you as a seller, you just have time for the things that really matter and can like automate all the manual work that takes you so much time. So you can, I don't know, go home earlier and spend more time with family and friends, and be much more effective at the same time by applying AI-based software. So it really just helps every seller being more productive. So applying knowledge and being more productive and automating workflows, those are really the key things. And I think there are also some discussions around like whether, AI will be replacing humans. Also in a sales conversation, we also had like some discussions with customers that said, hey, can't Demodesk also, develop a solution where we have a virtual avatar talking to our customers and it's not a real person. So I think, to be honest, we're not there yet for the support use case where it's like more transactional. It might be working, but like in sales, it's really, like you still, you're buying from a human, like you're also building a connection. Sales is also about trust, especially in the software space. So I don't see that coming super soon, but like for sure for more basic stuff, that will definitely also be becoming more and more, but probably like not for complex sales software conversations.
Yeah, I love that you just defended that, the common myth of everybody saying AI is going to replace everything and everyone. It's not. I think it's going to help. Like it is for certain transactional things. It's great, but I'm absolutely. I agree with you. I think there's still the human aspect of it that we're very, very far off of AI, even if it's catching up on us. So thank you so much, Veronica. We're wrapping up here for everybody. Thank you so much for your time. This was an incredible deep dive into the world of conversational metrics. We've learned, so the key talking points is that sales is not just about talking, it's about listening, it's about adjusting, it's about engaging, it's about listening to your coach, listening to AI, using AI to really help yourself become better and a trusted advisor to your prospects and your clients. So thanks for everybody, and you're an amazing guest, Veronica. I'm really, really, really happy to have shared this moment with you today, and for all of your wisdom. And yeah, for everybody that's listening, please take these insights, start applying to them, and give us some feedback on how it's been going. If we've helped you at all, that's absolutely awesome. And be sure that your clients will notice that. I'm sure of it. Also, please go ahead and add us on LinkedIn if you want to. So Realistic at Seismic, and then ask away some questions if you have any, or any comments that you've had. We're always open to feedback and to do better than today. So please go ahead and do that. I am also, as I said in the beginning, add your friends and your colleagues, and the next live session will be on the 10th of October, and I will have a session with James Kakis, also an incredible person, and amazing career path. He is Chief Solutions Officer today so he's going to be on the 10th of October. That's it. So thanks everybody for joining, and maybe we'll see you in the next LinkedIn Live. And thank you so much, Veronica. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.